All right, hello, folks, and welcome to a very impromptu show here. As I am Galen Clavio, I'm joined by a luminous group of student journalists here as we get ready to give you the preview of the upcoming game this evening. Indiana taking on Marshall in the College Cup final in men's soccer. We're really excited to be talking about this with you folks. We've got with us Jack Edwards from IUSTV Sports. We've got Evan Gerike from the Indiana Daily Student. We've got Jared Kelly from the Hoosier Network and Peegs.com. I am Galen Clavio. I hang around randomly and just talk occasionally about sports. Happy to have you folks joining us here, and we're going to have some folks filtering in. Guys, while we get the stuff out on social media and retweet it to various places, let me just walk through real quick and get from all of you your impressions of that game that IU played on Friday against Pitt. Jack, I want to start with you. Just a pretty awesome game, all things considered, and really an impressive win for Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, it was the classic IU. They like to attack. They're a very talented school, one of the best in the nation. I mean, 21 College Cup appearances, more than double the other three teams when they were.
And really an impressive win for Indiana.
And so they were able to also kind of shut down an incredibly talented Pitt team. There was a really interesting sub-storyline there as well, with Nick Sessick being the transfer, playing against his former team. Overall, I thought that IU was probably one of their best performances of the season. They looked comfortable almost. They didn't create a ton of chances, and it required a bit of magic from Herbert Endeley. But that's been the story of the season. If it's Victor Becerra, if it's Herbert Endeley, if it's Ryan Wittenbrink, they're solid, they're compact, and they toss over to one of their great forward players.
Evan, let's get your impressions on things.
Well, I mean, I'd have to disagree with Jack. I think they did play well, but I wouldn't say it was exactly comfortable. Pitt got unlucky, really. That's how I took what I took away from it. A couple open shots that they just didn't get on target. A couple chances that went right to Celentano that probably should have gone in. And IU, yeah, they like to attack, and they were able to score on the Endeley goal. But I was nervous watching it just because I know that for Indiana, all they need is that one chance to kind of strike, which is what they did with Endeley. They didn't really have – I think they only had 2 shots on goal in the final. But Pitt seemed to have so much pressure, and it was basically just if they could put enough pressure on, the IU's defense could break. And as we saw, that defense and Celentano, they didn't break, and that was really the main difference.
All right, let's toss it over to Jared.
Yeah, I would agree with Evan there. I mean, all the chances that Pitt had you have to feel bad for them almost. That one that went off the top crossbar and somehow did not cross the goal line. And then they had a couple others, a header that Celentano saved late. At some point, I think IU got a little bit lucky there. But, hey, props to them for finding that late goal. I mean, that's what they've done all season, really. For some reason, they can't seem to put the game away in the first half ever. So you always kind of have these late game scares. But the finish by Endeley there at the end was probably one of the best I've seen in a long time. And man, he's so shifty and he's so quick, especially when he's trying to mix the kind of burst through those 2 defenders. We've seen it all season, and that was just an incredibly technical finish. So yeah, hats off to Herbert Endeley there, and obviously tonight it's going to be another tough one. Oh, Galen, you're muted?
I'm muted. Hey, I just figured that out. Thank you. Sure. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to broadcast tonight either. But, hey, this is going to be a really interesting game as they face a Marshall team that's certainly very talented, a bit unheralded, not just coming into the season, but coming into the tournament. We'll talk about that a little bit. Before we get to that point, this team has, I think, gotten quite a bit of interest from casual IU fans who are excited that there's an IU team playing for a championship, but maybe don't know that much. And Lucas Corley asking here on the social media. And by the way, folks, you can chime in on social media and ask us any questions. Just respond on Twitter on the IU Sports Media account or on YouTube. We'll get you on there. But Lucas, IU Sports Media alum, for the fans that have followed casually, what are the top 3 things we should know about this team? Let's do one each. That way we can split it up evenly. I'm going to start with Evan, and then we'll rotate around. Evan, so give me one thing that you think people should know about this IU team.
Well, I'm going to give you one name, Roman Celentano. The goalkeeper for IU has been absolutely incredible all year. 9 shutouts on the season, plus the one. I don't believe NCAA credits him for the shutout against Northwestern in the Big Ten tournament because he came off the field for the last 5 minutes or so. I think Ben Pratt came on, didn't even see a shot, but that was kind of besides the point. Still counted as a shutout. So basically 10 shutouts on the season. He's been incredible. And it seems like anytime a shot goes on target that should have gone in, he's diving to make a save. He hasn't given up more than 1 goal in a game all season in his career, which I think he's at like 28, 29 starts now. That's only happened once against Maryland in the regular season last season. If someone's attacking or you're in penalty kicks and you got Roman Celentano in goal, and head coach Tyler Yeagley said this a lot this year, they feel pretty comfortable when he's there because the stuff that he does in goal is insane. His footwork is so good. His ability to read the play ahead of time to be where he needs to be for a shot is incredible. And you'll see throughout the season, a ball is headed right at him and you're like, oh, he was lucky to be in the right place. That's not entirely luck. He knows where he needs to be. He's super talented, and he's been one of the driving factors for why IU's been so good this season.
Let's head over to Jared actually for this next one. Jared, okay, give us another thing people need to know about this IU team.
Yeah, I mean, along with Roman, that back line coming into this year, it was pretty much Daniel Muni and Spencer Glass that made up the returners there. And obviously Spencer Glass went down towards the end of the season with a broken leg against Michigan, huge blow. Obviously captain, redshirt senior, out for the rest of the season. So right now they're kind of starting Joey Mayer, Daniel Muni, Nick Sessick, and Brett Beebe, who's kind of been all over. But that back line has been just as crucial to IU's success this year as Roman has. And I kind of tweeted this out earlier, but I think, Muni is one of those players that doesn't get talked about enough. Obviously he's not scoring goals or really tallying assists, but he's really been, rock solid there in the center, along with Joey Mayer. But I kind of think back to the Big Ten tournament title game where Mayer went down with a red card. And it was pretty much Daniel Muni there on an island by himself, kind of in the center. And it just goes to show just how, commanding he has, or I guess just a presence he has on the back line. So, yeah, definitely IU's back line has been huge this season.
All right, Jack, your turn. What do you got for us?
I mean, he doesn't score for a few matches, and you guys forget his name, Victor Becerra. I mean, he's a Mac Hermann Trophy finalist. He's one of the best players in the entire nation. And in terms of his goals per game, he hasn't scored the last few matches. I mean, he's been letting us down by not scoring a goal a game. But he's been carrying the side through the Big Ten tournament, especially scoring most of the goals for IU. And at the beginning of the NCAA tournament, I had a few concerns. Were they too reliant on him to be scoring your goals? If it wasn't Victor, who was going to be scoring a goal for IU? They've gotten that, obviously, with Herbert scoring the winner in the last match against Pitt. But he's been phenomenal all season, and in 10 days on the 27th, they'll figure out if he's going to be a Mac Hermann Trophy winner, and he'd be a very deserving one. And I think, in my estimation, he's a guy to watch out for this match. He hasn't scored in a few games, and you guys are forgetting his name, so he may decide to come back and try and score in the very last match, potentially of his IU career.
It's interesting because I think one of the things about this particular game that I'm fascinated about, it seems like Seton Hall and Pitt both went out of their way to frustrate Becerra, to limit his access to the ball. And I thought even with that, he did a pretty good job in the Pitt game of having possession and doing what he needed to do in the right spots. But I think, Jack, you hit on a really good point. It's like, well, if not him, who's going to score? And the fact that now we knew Herbert Endeley could score. We knew that Gumbale could score, but those guys have emerged even more. And it has to make your opposition defense kind of paranoid, because now you've got this multiple kind of Swiss Army knife set of offensive options that IU can turn to if they need to. And I would also argue that in this particular game, you're not facing a defense that's quite the caliber of a Seton Hall or a Pitt, both of whom were just like dynamite from a talent perspective. Jared, let me start with you on this one. I mean, when you look at this Marshall team, what is it that they bring to the table that IU needs to worry about? And let's stop with that, and I'll ask the next question to somebody else. But I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, with Marshall, obviously, a lot of people see them as a Cinderella team. They're ranked, I think, kind of top 15, top 20-ish all year. But this is obviously their first College Cup, first national title. I think this is the first time they've been past the Elite Eight even. which says a lot about just kind of what they're building over there. But a lot of similarities with IU and how they kind of approach the game. In the Final Four when they won, I think when they beat UNC, I think they had an 11-1 shot disadvantage, and their one shot was the game winner. So they're very selective, the defensive heavy, and they have a lot of international flair, similar to what we kind of saw with Pitt, Marquette, in St. Francis, Brooklyn as well. So I guess if you're looking for a high scoring match, you might be in for not that tonight.
Jack, in terms of your feelings on this IU matchup against Marshall, what is it that you see Marshall doing or having trouble with the most with IU at this point?
That's a tough one. I'm not really sure. They faced some very good teams. Clemson obviously beating the number 1 seed overall. They're a very good side defensively. My big thing for them is if you exclude their match against West Virginia University Institute of Technology, where they scored 10 goals, they've only scored 19 goals in 17 matches. So they don't want to get in a shootout. If IU scores first, could they struggle getting back in the match? It's a very simple concept. If you score more goals than your opponent, you're going to win, obviously. But if IU gets an early blow, especially being the more experienced side historically and with their players and their talent, if they're able to get that first step on them, can they come back? Do they have the talent there? I don't know. They have some players who have some pretty good numbers in terms of goals and assists, but I just poked around on the box sheet for that West Virginia University match, and a lot of their contributions were in that match. So I'm not saying that they don't have the talent, because they're obviously one of the 2 teams left standing, but if IU is able to get that first blow, it could be a quick unraveling for them potentially.
Evan, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, how do you size this Marshall team up, and what sort of threat they're going to pose to IU in this game?
Yeah, I'd imagine this game is going to turn out similar to the Marquette game. Both teams kind of had that defensive style, and this is what they did against UNC for the most part. They just kind of sat back, passed it around the backfield, try to get UNC running around, wear them down, and then find a spot where they can attack. They did only have that one shot on goal, and that was their goal, the one that ended up winning them the game, of course. So like Jack said, it's kind of, if IU can strike early, what can Marshall do after that? Can they kind of push up? IU is second in the country in goals against average at 0.312 or 321. Marshall's fourth. Roman Celentano's second in the nation in shutouts. Marshall's goalie, Oliver Stunley, is first. So it's going to be a low-scoring game, obviously, and it's just kind of if someone can score early. If Marshall tries to pressure Victor Becerra too much, focuses on him, then you leave Malun Kubali or Herbert Endeley open. You might be in trouble, or even Ryan Windenbrink. We haven't talked about him yet. So it's if Marshall can keep their defense spread around enough to mitigate all of IU scoring playmakers to keep this game close enough where they can get that one slip up from the IU defense, kind of like in the Marquette game where Marquette scored that first goal. If they can find something like that, and if their defense is sturdy enough not to let IU get back in, then IU could be in trouble.
We're talking live here with the beat writers and coverage meisters from the IDS, the IUSTV sports department, and the Hoosier Network as we pregame here in advance of IU taking on Marshall for the College Cup final. Evan, it's interesting. I think the idea that this IU team is, to some degree, I think, become accustomed to sitting back, absorbing pressure, counterattacking when they need to, and using their talent at the front end of things to score goals. I don't know if they necessarily need to do that in this game, and that's something I'm really interested in. Like, this is one of those where that approach might actually be counterproductive, because you really don't want to let Marshall stick around. I mean, I think you look at what they've done so far in this tournament, as was mentioned earlier, they're playing the number 1 overall seed in Clemson. They end up taking them to PKs, and that's a 7-6 PK in favor of Marshall. They had to go to overtime to beat Fordham, who's fine, but certainly not one of the seeded teams. And then the Georgetown and UNC wins were by pretty razor-thin margins. Not that those teams didn't, have the capacity to play further, more aggressive with things and be a little more positive with how they were approaching their offensive game. But it does feel like IU might be better served by trying to take initiative as early as possible in this one, because if you can get an early goal on the board, I don't know that I see Marshall as necessarily having the quality to be able to peg one.
You cut out there at the end, Galen.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I actually agree with you fully on that idea. Since Spencer Glasses went out, I've worried about this IU's capacity to create chances from open play. If a side has 4 players on the edge of their own box and they're trying to just keep it compact, how are they going to create chances like that? And if Marshall set out to do that, they could frustrate IU because Spencer Glass was such a good creator. Because if you tried to sit back against IU, make the spaces tight, he just put it on his left foot and just ping a perfect pass over the back line. Now, Brett Beebe's done a great job at left back, but he's not the best left back in the country like Spencer Glass was. They've had a lot of time to adapt since losing Spencer Glass. So I'm interested if they're going to have the initiative. They're the favorite, like a very comfortable favorite. It may be a bit of a disrespect to Marshall, but they should go out with a bit of we should dominate this match, score more goals than our opponent. And it's a big contrast to the Pitt game where Pitt had a lot of the ball and IU was comfortable absorbing some pressure and then breaking out quickly to Becerra and their quick players up front. So it's going to be a big change. I think they're capable of it, but it's going to be a change nonetheless.
Anybody else have thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think you guys capitalized on that pretty well.
Fair enough. Jared, when we think about let's kind of take a bigger picture view of things as we continue to chat here. We may actually get this game started on time. Florida State has scored on Santa Clara in the Women's College Cup final. This has been a feisty game. The weather is not great. There's been some misting rain. People aren't getting drenched per se, but I am interested to see what that does to the overall field conditions.
Field makes it more fun.
Yeah, it could be good. I mean, the field looks pretty good right now overall, and so I'm assuming the other field is going to look fine as well. As far as what this would mean for IU, I mean, this is a program that has been looking for the 9th star for almost a decade now, and they've come pretty close a few times. They made it to the College Cup final in Philadelphia. They lost that game to Stanford in overtime. They make it again. They end up losing in that surpriser out in Santa Barbara. And then, they've been one of the better teams, certainly in the conference and in the country for a while here. And I don't know if this is a team that people necessarily thought, especially after losing Spencer Glass, would be able to get this far. So first off, I guess with that, how surprised are you that this team has managed to maneuver through the bracket the way that they have and has found themselves in this position?
Yeah, I mean, to the first point, kind of what this would mean for IU if they were to win the 9th star. I think first and foremost, it would show that Todd Yeagley is the premier coach, if not arguably the best coach in the country. You just think, all they've been through, they hadn't played in, over a year because obviously the fall season was canceled, everything with COVID, and just kind of navigating the spring season without any exhibitions, without any non-conference matches. Just the fact that Todd Yeagley and the coaching staff was able to kind of guide this team through all of this. And they haven't skipped a beat except for that one Northwestern loss. Just that alone would kind of cement Todd Yeagley's place kind of up there among the greats, first and foremost. And then I guess just what it would mean to get the 9th star just for the program itself. We all know the legacy that's already been, cemented here. And I don't think a 9 star changes all that much, honestly. But it does get more eyes on the program, obviously. And it shows that, even though they can go 9 years or whatever it has been since they last won a national title, every year they're coming to play. They might not have the strongest team this year. We thought in 2017 they were going to go out and win it, and they didn't. And this year they have a chance to do it with a much, I guess not weaker, but definitely not as strong as that 17 team. So, they can do it all, and it should be interesting tonight. You're muted, Galen.
Muted myself again. See, I'm trying to be polite. I need to stop doing that. Evan, let me throw that same question to you and put a little additional context on it. I mean, I think about that 2012 team all the time, where that was not a team people thought was going to win the national championship. I mean, I think that team was the 16 overall seed. They had a surprise win, I think, at Notre Dame, who was the number 1 overall seed. And then they just kind of worked their way through the bracket. And there have been teams adjacent to that team that I think people thought had a better collection of talent and maybe were more suited to winning a title. But Kind of like this year, you lose a key piece, and maybe you've had a few better teams recently, but this is a team that's certainly a very unique vintage for IU men's soccer.
Yeah, and not to age you, Galen, but I don't really remember that 2012 team. That's a little too early for me.
Come on, do some research before the podcast. Come on.
I don't remember watching. I know about the team.
I'm kidding. It's a joke.
I mean, for me watching IU soccer, the first I remember is the 2018 College Cup where they lost to Maryland. Just kind of remember seeing more so IU sports media people going out there. But yeah, this team's different. It's not as good as a 17 or 18 team. Jack and I ourselves, we talked early in the season after some of those first indoor games that they dominated. We didn't know if this team was actually going to be good enough to get where they are here now. And obviously that was a long time ago. Things changed during the season, but you still could easily make the argument that this is not the most talented team, and you don't even have Spencer Glass. But nothing has been normal this year. We know this, obviously, and we're getting into territory of what I've pre-written for this game tonight, so I'm not trying to give too much away. Don't want Jared getting any ideas from me. But it's going to be weird, and no matter what happens, what this 9-star means for the program, maybe doesn't mean so much because it is the 9th star and they've been dominant for so long, but it means so much to this team. This team is they've gone through more than any other program in IU history, maybe. Players like Spencer Glass, AJ Palazzolo, it means a lot for them to finally be able to get that national championship. They've been around since this team was going to the College Cup in 17 and 18. Spencer Glass was on that 17 team. I don't actually believe he played in the 17 national championship game, but he played in the first College Cup match. He was around in 18, and now he's missing this game as well. So it probably is not easy for him to be sitting out, but it'll mean a lot if this team can win for him and just for themselves because of everything they've gone through over the past 300 days or so.
Yeah, Jack, I mean, let's talk a little bit about what they've gone through thing, because I do think it's important to remember, like, because we got sports on television, we got people in the stands, not here in Bloomington, but down in Cary we do, and yet it's easy to forget how screwed up this season was, as recently as February, where we were still questioning whether there was going to even be a full season in the first place. Like, can you put some of what's gone on with this men's soccer team in context for us?
Well, I mean, it's May and it's College Cup. That's one of the biggest changes. It's warm as opposed to when it normally be very cold. And I mean, they've been dealing with the same hand everybody else has been dealt, mostly. I mean, I think the only big difference another team would have would be the ACC teams who would play in the fall. They played in the spring. So they were really well tuned, like Clemson and Pitt were both machines because they had been playing for so long. They were 1 and 2 in the country for a reason. But IU, they had to wait so long. I mean, training in pandemic conditions, masks, all the things that are limiting you. And I think I go back and forth on if this is a less talented team than some of the other teams in the past, because what they have is they may not be the most technically great, physically great players who are going to go to the MLS, go to the USL, go to Europe, but they know how to win matches. And it's not something you can teach. It's just a cohesion that is built in a group. This group has that. And I think part of that has come from the conditions they've been in. They haven't had fans in the stands. They've had very limited family interaction. They've been stuck on campus and be stuck in these bubbles for so long. They've been forced, I guess, bond even closer. So a group and a school as historic as IU, I think almost benefits a bit more than others do because, and especially now, it's in North Carolina, and IU is going to get a pretty sizable fan base being brought there. And in terms of what it means, I want to loop back to that really quickly. We've seen Tom Allen revolutionize the football program. We're seeing Mike Woodson beginning to hopefully revolutionize the men's basketball program, women's basketball doing tremendous things. All these programs that IU seem to be on the upswing, and it almost feels like the men's soccer programs reminding people, well, this is a men's soccer school. Like, we're going to go win our ninth national title. It'd be a huge – I mean, you look at the numbers, it's crazy. 21 at times in the College Cup. And this is Marshall's first time. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, no, it's certainly, a tradition of excellence, to borrow a phrase from another school. And I do think that from the standpoint of what it would mean if you're trying to put some kind of historical context in it, I mean, the the IU brand and the fact that they've remained such a relevant program when, a lot of the early soccer programs, so St. Louis has the most titles in men's soccer, and yet they haven't won a title since 1972, I think, or something like that. And yet Indiana's been relevant essentially since they hit the stage as a varsity sport in the mid 1970s, and it's just never let up. And that stat you just quoted, Jack, or if you want to quote the Big Ten regular season titles or tournament title stats, they're all there. They really do add up to that. It is really interesting. I remember talking to somebody about 10 years ago, and it was kind of like, well, college soccer's changed. It's going to be guys like Caleb Porter, with Akron, or programs like Seton Hall, frankly, that are just getting these loads of international players coming in and playing that's going to rule the roost. And so for IU, to win another title here, especially after having knocked on the door so much recently, would be a huge accomplishment. It's I've been trying to figure out what the context is that would fit. The closest thing I can think of, Duke won a men's basketball title in 2001, and they kind of hung around. They were in some Final Fours, but they didn't really do a whole lot for a while. And then at the end of that decade, they end up winning another national title, and it's like, hey, we're still here, and we're still the gold standard. And now, they win another title after that, and they've been still very much at the forefront of college basketball since then. And it's just a much tougher sport than it used to be. There's so much more talent coming in from all over the place. And so for IU to still be in this position with all that competition, with all this new blood coming in, with these new ideas, I think is a really fascinating thing. We should probably get ready for predictions. We said we were going to go until about 7:30. I promised this in the tweet as to why I'm not in Cary. Normally I would go, and the flights were not that bad. I was just going to go down. I was going to, watch the game and then celebrate all night, hopefully, and then just get on the plane at 6:00 the next morning and fly back. However, as I was talking to a couple of friends of mine, and the sporting events I've traveled to the most recently for IU, 2012 men's basketball regional in Atlanta, loss. 2013 regional in DC, loss. 2015 Pinstripe Bowl, loss. 2018 College Cup in Santa Barbara, loss. Gator Bowl, loss. Outback Bowl, loss. That's why my ass is still here in Bloomington as opposed to being down in North Carolina. So if we win, I'm going to take the smallest bit of credit for keeping myself from getting on the plane. But I'll also be very disappointed not getting a chance to see it, because I think it would be. I wish I'd gone down in 12 when they were within a drive to Alabama for that title game against Georgetown. But anyway, that's where we're at with things right now. So
what a sacrifice!
Yeah, gotta do what you got to do for the team. That's my perspective. All right, Jared, let me start with you. Give us how you think this game's going to go and your final prediction on the scoreline.
Yeah, we touched on it earlier. Obviously, very defensive heavy battle. But this match, IU might have some more opportunity to actually push the ball in the first half. Contrary to what the commentators were saying last game, they weren't actually that abysmal in the first half. But yeah, I think they'll definitely have a couple more opportunities at least to make things happen early on. And I think Jack said it earlier, Victor Becerra hasn't scored in 3 games. I think this is the match he goes out with a bang. I'm going to say he scores early in the second half, and then IU finds a way to pull it out.
All right, Evan, let's go to you. Yeah, I think like you were talking about earlier, IU's going to come out, try to push the offense up. I think they'll pick up an early goal, whether it's Becerra or Becerra passing off to someone, or somehow they're going to find a way into the back of the net in the first 20 minutes or so. And then they're going to try to make Marshall uncomfortable for the rest of the game, attacking more than they're used to. So I'll say a final score of 2-0 with a late addition on a Marshall push that didn't work out.
All right, Jack?
Yeah, Jared, you previewed kind of what I was going to say as well. I imagine Victor Becerra is going to score. I imagine IU will probably dominate the possession, especially in early proceedings. I really go back and forth on if that's going to mean that Marshall might get a counterattack goal early, or if IU might break him down. I'm going to be a bit more optimistic, I guess. I think IU's going to score early. I think Marshall's just – I'm going to stick with what my prediction, I guess, that they're not going to be able to recover. I think Becerra just scores a scrappy goal early. IU scores another one quickly after, and then it's kind of just a cakewalk. It's not a very dramatic game. 2-0, 3-0. I'll stick with 3-0 win, IU.
I'm a little more trepidatious than you guys are on this. I've seen these games many times, and I'm always a little bit nervous about getting over anxious or over eager. I mean, it sounds like Marshall's going to have Matthew McConaughey in the stands, and they've got some celebrity fans that are coming into town to try to support their cause here. And it is a great story. I mean, Marshall athletics, obviously one of the tragic stories overall in college sports history, and it is cool to see them achieving something on the national stage. I think Randy Moss might be in the stands as well. So could be quite a set there. And I think Marshall's going to really go out of their way to frustrate IU, maybe even at the expense of their own offense. And that might end up creating a standstill for a while in this game, because I think that Todd Yeagley is smart enough as a coach. I know he's smart enough as a coach. He's not going to push the effort there and open his own team up defensively in an unnecessary manner. I actually think this one is going to go into extra time scoreless. I do think IU is going to score there. I don't think it's going to go to PKs, but never underestimate in a championship match like this, where you've got a team that's overmatched talent-wise, their ability to just clog things up. And IU's had to deal with that. They dealt with that a bit in the Big Ten tournament, and I think they're probably going to deal with that a little bit here as well. So I do think Indiana's going to win. I think it's going to be a closer contest, probably a bit nervous. But I think IU's got the quality to see this one out and claim that 9th star. So, guys, this was fun. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Well, we all predicted IU to win, so I'm very sorry, guys, but it's going to be a sad night for us, I guess.
This is IU sports media. I feel like we kind of have a bit of a right to.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I tried to get the Marshall student paper beat writer on, but he wasn't responding to his email. So
we could have beat up on him and just made fun of him.
Well,
first time here.
He's I don't know. It's going to be interesting all the way around. I'm curious to see what happens. But, stay tuned during the game on Twitter. All you folks out there, you can follow these fine gentlemen on Twitter, as they'll be, I guess, virtually covering the game via their virtual press passes. And I would also check out the IU men's soccer feed, because they generally do a very good job of retweeting goals when they happen. So if you're missing it for whatever reason on television, you'll be able to catch it up there. So anyway, I guess he's over there, Jared Kelly from the Hoosier Network and Peas.com, for Evan Gerike from the Indiana Daily Student, for Jack Edwards from IUSTV Sports, I'm Galen Clavia. Thanks for joining us here. Indiana facing Marshall at 8 o'clock this evening, Eastern time. We'll look forward to watching that game then. Well, maybe not, as Santa Clara just tied up Florida State with about 7 minutes left. So it might be like 8:15 before the game starts. But anyway, either way, stick with us. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you folks on the flip side. So long, everybody.